All right, so we are doing quiz number 2 review. If you look on your Google Classroom, you're going to notice when I put this announcement, I said the number of the quiz does not represent how many quizzes we've done. So in other words, you haven't missed quiz 1. The number represents the week. So this is going to be week 2. We're on week 2, so I call it quiz 2. If we take a quiz week 12, it'll be called quiz number 12. Okay? So don't worry, you have not missed a quiz in my class at all. This is going to be the first quiz that we're going to do. But it does tie into the week number, so we call it quiz number 2. So we're just going to review the first 3 sections you guys were supposed to see. I know some of you guys came from different teachers. Maybe they covered everything the way they were supposed to, just didn't number it the way I do, and that's okay. But if there's something that you see that you're like, I don't know what that is, please let me know so I know once I'm done with the review that maybe I should go over a couple little things to kind of help you out. So first thing is they're going to want us to evaluate stuff. So when you're evaluating things, you're supposed to do them by hand, not with a calculator, but you will be able to use a calculator tomorrow. So, I mean, if you want to use a calculator, that's fine. But these are supposed to be manually done. So, order of operations is the key to this stuff, right? So when you're doing this, I'm just going to kind of write this out here. I'm not going to write the whole definition. But just remember, guys, the M and the D can be done in any order as long as you're going from left to right. So if division comes out first before multiplication, do division first. If multiplication comes out before before division, then do multiplication first. And then we also have addition and subtraction. That can be done in any order. It can be subtraction first or addition first as long as you're going from left to right. Okay? So there's always an or there. Parentheses and exponents have to be done in that order. Okay? So just a real quick reminder. So here we're going to go with parentheses first, right? 2 plus 3, that's going to be 5. So I'm going to put 5 times 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. By the way, just so you guys know, I do take these questions out of your quiz and rewrite them. So in other words, there are questions just like this on your quiz. Okay? I'm not just making up random stuff and then you're going to see a bunch of different things when you take the quiz. Now, they're not, bless you, they're not going to be the same problem, or maybe they might be. Sometimes I try to get a little sneaky and give you a whole bunch of problems from the quiz and not tell you, and then I see who studied. Okay? So, but I'll never tell you. You'll figure it out the day of the quiz. You'll be like, hey, we did that one. Right? And we did that one, and we did that one. So, I always recommend you guys study the stuff I give you. So, all right, next one, d times e quantity squared if d is negative 2 and e is 4. So let's go ahead and plug it in. D is negative 2, e is 4, and we're going to square it. Negative 2 times 4, that's going to be a negative 8. And if we square that, we get a 64. Now, I do want to warn you guys, there's a reason why I did this problem. The little warning is this. If you go on your calculator and you press this number, the negative, right? Not minus, but it normally looks something like this. And then you press 8, and then you do the x squared button, right, to square it. Okay, or maybe you do the caret symbol and press 2. I'm not sure how you like to raise your power. But if you do that, you know the answer it's going to give you is a negative 64. Okay? And that's not wrong, it's correct. Negative 8 squared is negative 64 because negative 8 squared, if you write it like that, the way you type it, it's going to square 8 first. Remember, it has to do the exponents before it does the minus, right? So 8 squared is 64, and then it just multiplies in the negative, and now it's negative 64. That's correct, okay? If you want to get a positive 64, make sure you put the parentheses, okay? You got to type in the parentheses. Then you're going to type in the negative, then the 8, then the close parenthesis, and then square it. That's going to give you a 64. Okay? A calculator is a smart thing, but I always tell people the calculator is only as smart as the user. If the user doesn't know how to use it, then a calculator is going to just throw out different types of answers, and you won't know the difference. Okay? So make sure you understand that. All right? Whenever you want to square a negative number, if you want to square the whole negative number, put parentheses around it. All right? Because you guys should know anytime you square a number, it should be positive, but that's not always what we want. So it depends how it's written. Okay? It depends how it's written. So, yeah, so this one would basically tie into this, okay, because notice that number was in a parenthesis. So just a real quick FYI for you guys. It's a very common mistake that people do. I'm just trying to help you guys out so you don't make that mistake. All right, now these are supposed to be calculator active problems, okay? So if I may, let me bring out a calculator. I have nice calculators for you guys to use, not like this, don't worry. The ones you guys will be using look way easier. But I'm just going to do this on a calculator just so you guys can see it. And then I'll hit enter and it should give me the answer. So here we go. I'm going to press parenthesis. 5 minus 7 minus 20. I'm going to put a close parenthesis here, times 3. And it gives me a negative 66. So there you go. That's all you have to do for those problems. Okay? So negative 66. And then the same thing for number 4. I'm just going to go back to that calculator. And I'm going to do 5 minus a negative 4 times 2. So 5 minus parenthesis a negative. Notice my negative is down here. You see how it's like in a parenthesis minus right there? Okay, a lot of calculators either have this or they have a button that says plus/minus. Okay? Get to know what the buttons look like. If you don't know during the test, you're like, I don't know where the negative is, raise your hand. Okay? Some calculators are okay if you press minus as a negative. Some freak out. So if you want to know where it is, if you haven't seen it, let me know. I have 30 calculators here that you can borrow, and we'll talk about how you'll borrow them on the day of the quiz. Okay? So anyway, we're going to put a 4 there. And then times a 2. And it's 13. Calculators do understand order of operations as long as you type them in right. It'll understand. So this is going to be 13. So I'm done. No big deal. Okay? So hopefully you're like, okay, this isn't so bad. The quiz isn't going to be that difficult. It shouldn't be. The only time it starts to get a little bit more difficult is once we start doing solving and simplifying. And that's where we're moving into. By the way, we do have 11 examples. And there are 20 questions on your quiz. So I'm basically covering over 50% of the stuff you're going to see on your quiz. Okay? I'm covering 55% to be exact. Right? So anyway, simplification means combining like terms. Right? So I see for number 5 that 2x and 3x are like terms. So I can combine those. Right? So 2x plus 3x, that's 5x. And negative 5 plus 2 gives me what? It's a negative 3, right? Negative 3, and that's it. We're done. Okay? Again, not that this is insanely difficult. It's just checking, do you remember how to combine your like terms? Okay, the terms that are going to be going together. Okay? And then this next one came out in the homework if you did the homework I gave you. I even gave you an example in class like this because I know this one's kind of confusing. And there's going to be one like that on the quiz as well, like number 6. Okay? The hard part is that distribution in the front isn't a big deal, but sometimes people forget to distribute that way. Because you can do reverse distribution. So it's not often seen, but it does happen. Okay? So let's go ahead and distribute. I have negative 3 times x, so that's negative 3x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And then plus, and since there's a negative that I'm going to be multiplying in, I'm going to keep my parenthesis there just to be safe. Okay? You don't have to, but I just like to because eventually I got to distribute that positive, which will not change anything, but you do have to distribute. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. And negative 2 times negative 3x is positive 6x. Now at that point, you're supposed to distribute the positive 1. There is a positive 1 right here. Okay? You're supposed to distribute that positive 1 in. Okay? So that would go here and there. But hopefully you guys have learned this before. When you distribute a positive sign, nothing changes. When you distribute a negative sign, every sign changes. Okay? So in other words, nothing's going to change. So I'm just going to write negative 3x minus 15 minus 4 plus 6x. Now I can combine some like terms. So what's negative 3x plus 6x? 3x, thank you. Negative 15 minus 4? Negative 19. And there you go. Thank you for the help. So that's it. Again, not a hard problem, but it is kind of weird looking to start. All right? So from here, we're going to move on to some solving problems, I think. Let me double check. Are we okay so far with the first 6? Any questions, anything from there? All right. So yeah, we're going to start some solving. I think we're going to do 2 normal solving ones and then 3 of the absolute ones, just to make sure you guys understood those. Okay, and then we're done. And usually, when we do a review, after I'm finished with the review, what you guys are supposed to do is either work on your ALEKS, which we haven't started yet, so don't worry, or you're supposed to work on any homework you haven't done yet, because it is due tomorrow. Or if you need to do homework from English or whatever, you're just going to keep yourself busy. We're not going to grab phones and start playing games, stuff like that, right? You will be able to get your phones 5 minutes before class is over, so that would be by 9:17. Okay? Let me pause this. All right, so for number 7, we are solving. Okay, now notice we do have variables on both sides of the equation, which means you want to combine them. I always try to move the variables first, and I always move the smaller of the two. So I have a 2e, and I have a 5e. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the 2e over. Okay, now I'm not sure how your teachers like to show it. I know they like to put minus 2e, minus 2e. But honestly, I just prefer drawing an arrow. And the arrow basically means you're going to switch the side for it. So you're going to switch the sign. So in other words, instead of a positive 2e, it's going to become a minus 2e. So 5e minus 2e, that's 3e. Plus 1 plus 3, that's 4. And over here, it's going to be just a 10. Okay? Now I want to leave that e stuff, the 3e by itself. Let me get that 4. I'm going to move it to the other side. So if I'm going to move the 4 to the other side, it's positive now. When I move it to the other side, it has to have the other sign. Okay, so that's the one thing that I always tell people. If you're going other side, you change it to the other sign. Okay, so instead of a plus 4, it's a minus 4. So 10 minus 4, that's 6, equals to 3e. Now we divide both sides. I'll show this right here. Divide by 3. So 2 is equal to e. So again, this shouldn't be anything too crazy and challenging. Remember, all of chapter 2 is supposed to be a review. So if you're like, I know how to do this stuff before. It's a review, okay? Because we tend to forget a lot of stuff when we go on vacation. Okay, we tend to forget a lot of stuff in a week, right? Sometimes in a couple days. So when you're gone for a little bit over 2 months, it's kind of nice to see some stuff that you recognize and you don't feel too scared to do. All right, so here we go. Absolute values. So you guys said that Martinez, you guys did do the absolute values. With Perez, I think you guys are doing the absolute values because I remember seeing some of my students asking for help in math lab over that. So the idea of an absolute value is that the absolute value is a distance. Okay, so the absolute value is a distance. All right, so for this, remember, like I said, every absolute value by definition is the distance from 0. That's what it means, the distance from 0, right? So anytime you see an absolute value, it means the distance from 0. So distance cannot be negative, okay? Distance can be 0 or it can be any positive number, but distance can't be negative, ever, okay? So, and then the other thing I showed you guys when I taught this to you guys is that because the absolute value can have 2 types of solutions, I got to break these up into 2 different types of problems. So this is how you break it up. You're going to erase the absolute values. You're going to write f minus 3, and you're going to set it equal to 0. So just the way it looks, okay? It's normal way. But then you're going to write it again, f minus 3, but the second time you're going to change the number at the end to a negative. Okay? Now notice, is negative 0 a thing? No, right? Basically, this is just f minus 3 equals 0. So if I solve the first equation, do I basically solve the second equation as well? Yeah, I do. They're identical, right? Notice, these match up. So I don't have to solve both of them. I just got to solve one. So I'll move the 3 over here. f equals 3, and I'm done. I don't have to solve the other one, because if I do, I still get f equals 3, right? So I don't need to worry about that one, because nothing really changed. All right, so there's that. I'm promising you, there's going to be a problem like this on your quiz. There's no reason for me to do a tricky one like this if it's not there. Why am I going to make you practice something that's not going to show up? So make sure you understand how to do this. Here's another one. Okay, so 20x plus 16, the absolute value of it is equal to 124. So I have to solve for that. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and break it up into two problems. 20x plus 16 equals 124, and then 20x, not 2x, plus 16 equals negative 124. Okay, if you want, I'll even highlight the little minor change. Okay, this is the minor change that's happening, even in the previous problem, right here, okay? You guys will get these notes in a PDF form after, just in case you missed something. Sometimes you got to go to the bathroom, and I'm still going, so if you missed that part, just look at my PDF and you'll see what you missed. You don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm never going to get that back. So let's go ahead and start solving. If I move the 16 over there, okay, I get 20x is equal to 124 minus 16. That's 108. Okay? And then I have to divide. Okay? So if I divide both sides by 20, I don't have a calculator with me, but here's the answer I would get, but I would expect you guys to reduce that. So give me a second. I'm going to do this in my head. If I cut this in half, that's going to be 54 over 10. And if I cut that in half again, that's 27 over 5. So there's one answer. And that's okay. To have fractions as answers, that's fine. 27 over 5, no big deal. You guys on your calculator, you could just type in 108 over 20 equals, remember there's a fraction button on those calculators that I let you borrow if you want. And it should give you 27 over 5. So you're good. Okay, you don't have to go through the process I did. The next one, I got to move that negative 16 over. And when I move that over, what do I get? It's negative 124 minus 16. Negative 140, yeah. And then if I divide by 20, x is equal to negative 70. Actually, no. 7. By the way, in case I forget, if I ever make a mistake and you can catch me, if I haven't noticed it, raise your hand and tell me. Okay? And if you're right that I made a mistake, I give you extra credit. All right? So try to see if you can catch me. Like right now, I made the mistake, but then I'm like, wait a minute. 20 times 70 is like, that's 400, not, that's 1,400, not 140. So that's why I'm like, wait, gotta fix it. Are we okay with this one? All right, we got two more. I want to do this one, which is kind of easy, and then this one that shows a little bit extra work. Okay? But sometimes people get confused with these because there is some division in it. And when there's division, people kind of freak out like, oh, where do I put that, right? So I do want to get rid of that division by 5. Now, in order to get rid of division by 5, I want to multiply by 5. Okay? I want to multiply. So I'm going to move this over, but I'm going to put a little mark right here. I'm going to put a times there. Because I'm not adding it or subtracting it. I'm multiplying. So I'm going to put a little times here. So that gives me the absolute value of x is equal to 50. Now at this point I can break it apart. So when I break it apart, I'm going to get x equals to 50 and x equals to negative 50. Right? I'm supposed to change it a positive, like it's equal to a positive number, it's equal to a negative number. Okay? I can't do anything to solve these, so basically I'm done. That's it. Those are my two answers. You'll have division and stuff like that on your quiz. By the way, you can always study your homework. Okay, you can always go look at your homework if you want extra stuff to try and practice. Because I make my quizzes off of the homework that I give you. I just tell it, okay, this one, regenerate the problem. So I took the exact same question I just told you, just rewrite it. Instead of absolute value of x over 5 equals 10, it's going to say absolute value of x over 7 equals 5 or something, right? But it's the same format. So like I said, practice what I give you. Practice your homework. You should be fine all year. Okay, I'm not lying to you. Your midterm that we're going to take, the big test, in the halfway point and then at the final at the end, they're all based on homework. If you can do the homework, you can do the tests, you can do the midterms, you can do the quizzes, you can do everything. Okay? Just do the homework. That's the most important part. So here we go, last piece. And this is given to you on purpose. Okay? Now there's a reason why I gave this to you, because there is a problem that's going to look very similar to this. Okay? Remember, our main objective is to get the absolute value by itself. Right now, there's a 3 that's multiplying. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it out. So I get the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to negative 2/3. Now, the fact that it's a fraction is not a problem. Okay? The fact that it's a fraction is not a problem. All right, so can someone tell me what the issue is? Not that it's a fraction. Because it's a negative. I told you guys that the absolute value represents what? Distance. And distance can never be negative, right? We don't travel negative 2 miles. We travel 2 miles, right? You don't run a mile in one direction and then run it back and you say 1 minus 1 is 0. I didn't run, right? We ran 2 miles, okay? So distance cannot be negative. An absolute value cannot be negative. This right here is a problem. And unless I can get rid of it, then I can't do this problem, which I can't. There's nothing I can do to get rid of it, so I'm going to write no solution. And this is what you guys have to know how to do for your quiz, above other things, but just use your homework to study other little practice problems, stuff like that. But this is the main idea.